to the racks every week, keep craving that rush that you get when you flip to the next page. Life is better when you live in between Wednesdays. Yes, got a massive back.
What's up, folks? I'm your host, Konrad, on Wednesday Night Reviews, and tonight I'm joined by Kelly of KT Comics. Kelly, thanks for coming on the show today.
Absolutely. I'm excited for today.
Me too. So for the folks out there in YouTube land, we're doing something a little different tonight. Kelly is not, in fact, a comic book creator, a writer, an artist. Actually, you might be. I don't know. But Kelly has their own channel, KT Comics, where they talk about collecting comics, searching for comics, and the end of the comics industry that I'm not too aware of. And in the same vein, Kelly's not too up on indie comics, Kickstarters, things like that. So we're going to have a bit of a knowledge exchange. We're going to take him to school, let him know what's up. And by the end of this, we're both going to be better for it. So I guess, you know what, Kelly, for your fans who've never seen me, and for my fans I've never really done anything like this before, I'm Konrad, your host for this wonderful show you're watching. I've been reading comics in floppy form and collecting them since 2011 with DC's New 52. And from there, I brokered out everywhere. Prior to that, I'd picked up graphic novels, mostly Batman, Hush, Final Crisis, and Dark Knight Returns being the big three that I started with. But yeah, I've massively gone everywhere since. And then, about 4 years ago, I started doing this, talking to indie creators because I wanted sort of more interesting stories. I wanted to support local because I do find that to be important to me. And that's sort of a background on me, actually. I don't think I've ever given that before for my show.
Nice.
Yeah. Kelly, for the folks out there, who are you? What is KT Comics? Give them the spiel.
Yeah, so my name is Kelly. Basically, I've been collecting since, it's probably about 15 years now. I've been a collector basically my whole life, but for comics, about 15 years. And really, it's such a unique hobby, right? I mean, just listening to you talk about, I need interesting stories and I need this, and how you're talking about the indies and Kickstarters, but yet it's still lumped into comics, where I'm focused more on the superheroes and that kind of stuff. So it's such a cool thing. And for me, my channel is all about getting people to understand how to collect comic books, where to begin. I have new segments coming down the pipeline that I've been working on pretty hard right now. But awesome. Just getting to know the superhero end of comic books, and to know, hey, you watch Civil War. Well, these are the comics that you should look for, and stuff like that, right? So it's been a lot of fun, and I've been on the channel for about just a little over a year now, and man, have I learned a ton.
Always learning. That's definitely something I've realized is the more you get into this, and not that I guess I kind of am a little bit, but not that I consider myself an authority on indie comics. But you definitely you learn a lot when you start doing the research and actually looking into stuff, and it's pretty wild.
Yeah, 100%. I'm always a firm believer, if you're not learning something new every day in comic book land, you're not doing it right. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
I mean, there's no wrong way to collect comic books, but it's very easy to learn something new all the time.
Oh, absolutely. I actually, for myself, my most recent change, we've previously talked about this, before the recording, but I've recently flipped over from classic long boxes and short boxes to the BCW black plastic ones. I love them. You can stack them 3 high. I don't know if I'd go any higher, because when they're full, they're heavy. But yeah, it's pretty cool, and I think you're right. There's just a ton to learn about comics.
100%. And with like talking about the BCW, I know people that have custom made their short boxes, and I know people that just go long boxes, and I couldn't do it. Long boxes are so heavy that, hauling them around, it's a lot, right? So I normally go for the graphic boxes. That's what I like to do, to kind of have a theme to it. But the BCW, if I didn't go the graphic route, I was definitely going the BCW. So they're awesome.
Absolutely, yeah. For the folks out there, again, if you've never read comics before and this is where you're starting, cool. Thank you for showing up. The terms that we're using: short box, long box, BCW. So a short box is, God, can I lift this just to show people? Perfect, and it's a graphic. So this is a short box. It holds upwards of 150-ish comics,
Give or take.
Yeah, give or take. And then a long box will be double that, up to ish 300. Obviously,
They're super awkward to kind of lift and move around, right?
yeah, and especially if you go for like I said, the classic cardboard. It's usually a white cardboard, and when that sucker's full and you lift it, it wants to move a little bit on you, and it's kind of dicey. So BCW, which is the change I've made, they've put out a hard plastic, and I'll put a picture up of one because I cannot lift these right now. It's basically a far more structured version. It's comfortable to lift, even though it's heavy, and yeah, it stacks nicely, so it's just got that extra step of protection. Yeah. So yeah, we're indie comics.
Yeah, teach me.
So I'm going to say a very controversial statement that anyone will gladly jump at me for. How to start there? You know what? I'm just going to say it. Image, Dark Horse, IDW, I don't consider them indie comics. Now, before the internet rage happens, here's what I mean. Indie classically always referred to music or film. And it was basically, if something was indie, it wasn't associated with a larger corporation, right? So like an indie record label wouldn't be Def Jam Records or Hollywood Records or the big titans in the industry, right? So
100%, yeah.
Yeah. So when people say indie comics, what they really mean is not DC and not Marvel, who are the giants in this industry. Absolutely, hands down, no questions asked. Those two together are like probably 80% of all comics. Or at least they were. I don't know if they are anymore. I don't think so. But
I think Image is getting quite up there, right? Sorry to cut you off, but
yeah,
I think Image is becoming, a big staple again, right? So
yes, perfect thing. So Image, who creates, for instance, Once and Future King, or rather they publish it. It's created by Kieran Gillen, Dan Mora, and colored by Tamara Bonvillian. Awesome book, by the way. I love this book.
okay.
I don't consider that indie. So when Image started with the Image boom in the 90s with like Spawn and stuff like that,
yeah,
they were indie, right? They were just a bunch of comic artists who were like, we want to tell these stories. So like Jim Lee, Todd McFarlane, and a bunch of like Rob Liefeld, a bunch of other guys all went, screw these big companies. We're going to go do our thing. And they did, and they totally kicked ass, and they're a household name today.
Yeah.
Same thing happened with Dark Horse. Hellboy came out, and now look at, there's movies of Hellboy. If you go on Netflix, you'll see multiple series that are from Image books. These are huge companies now. So that's where my mind goes. Image is not really indie anymore. And I had this conversation with someone, and they were like, well, what do you consider not indie? And I'm like, to me, if you're big enough that you've got movies or TV series being made, you're a big ass company. That is no longer indie. That being said, from what I understand, when Image, specifically Image, I'm not sure about Dark Horse or IDW or Oni Press or all of these other guys, but I understand that when you as a writer or artist go to Image and say, hey, here's my story, character design, whatever, I want to make this, you maintain rights to it and you own that character story. They just publish it and take a cut. And that does make them very different, which is very cool.
Yeah.
But again, they're a giant company, and when you go to them with your story, they can advertise it everywhere. So that's why I no longer say it's indie, because they've got too much money and backing to be small.
Yeah, I think Todd McFarlane really took that and exploded it on the market. When they first started off in the 90s, it was kind of a big screw you, why am I doing all this work and getting pennies on the dollar, right? And so now when they're flipping it, you still get the rights, which is good. I think that is true, that you need to have that, but it's a business. They're still making tons of money off of it, right? So then when you get someone who's doing Kickstarter, it's almost like a small business, right? They're just starting to kind of to grow up compared to a Walmart, right?
Perfect. Yeah, you're totally right. So let's talk about Kickstarter. So a lot of the people that I interview, that's what they're doing. So my first interview was with Group of Seven Comics, who made this graphic novel. They actually produced it as floppies first and then collected it.
For sure.
And that's basically what they did. Another gentleman I'm hopefully going to interview, which is Grant. Grant Stoy is his name. This is a comic called Side Quest, issue 5. The Kickstarter actually was just successful, and you can get these, I believe, digital copy, possibly physical copy from their store. To me, that's an indie comic. So what these people have done basically is they've come up with an idea. If you're, this is typically how it happens. If you're the writer, you come up with an idea, you write a script, and the famous channel that I'm seeing is on Reddit, where there's a channel specifically for making comics, and someone will put, hey, I've got a story, it's fantasy, or it's a brief synopsis. If you want to draw it, let me know. A bunch of artists will go, yeah, that's my style. I like that kind of story. They'll propose it, and then that writer and artist normally either go, cool, we'll do the work and then we'll split the profit afterward, or the writer will actually pay the artist for the pages and then put the work out, right? Things like Kickstarter, which is mostly what the people I interview do, allow them to basically put out a campaign, give you some sort of ad to go buy my book. It's really cool. It's got fantastic art in it.
I was gonna say.
Yeah. So they'll always give you a glimpse or something. They'll come on shows like mine and they'll talk to me so people can learn about it. And then people will go support it. I think what I like most about Kickstarter is you can pledge X number of dollars, but after the 30 days or 60 days or however long their campaign is, unless it's successful, they don't actually collect it from you.
Okay.
So there's really no risk unless all that money gets made, right? And that's a way, like, I find a lot of people go, and you can really split hairs and talk about different strategies for becoming successful on Kickstarter and what works, but generally that's the way it goes. And what I think I like most about indie comics, like this kind of indie, like Kickstarter, just an artist and a writer making these books, as open to ideas as Image is, right? And they've told some really amazing stories. Die is another one that it's D&D inspired. Yeah, exactly. You know it.
I read that one.
Yeah, it's like such a good book. So cool. It deals with some really heavy subject matter, like when it comes to trauma and some really dark stuff. But that's still ultimately a company that can be like, no, this thing you want to make, no. Because it's the irony of this, it's their image they're trying to maintain. And when you have indie comics, there isn't anything like that. Like Grant here, who made Side Quest, this is all Grant, right? Obviously, like you can see there's a bunch of names here. Rasico, so Alaire is actually the artist of this book, Alaire Rasico, who I've interviewed, and her partner, and her partner Tobin, he's a letterer and a writer himself. He's worked on this book too. But like all of this is just totally what they came up with and what they thought was cool. And so you got this really interesting story out there. And to me, that is the most direct indie thing you can get. And yeah, it just basically, it allows people to go and have fun. Another one, I don't have it on my wall anymore. There's a book out there called Trakovi, Trakovi. It actually got picked up by Scout Comics. So they're
Oh wow,
coming out later in the year. Um, Fantastic book, totally wild. It's actually based in Canada, which is super cool.
that's even better.
Yeah, right. Like that's the cool stuff. Um, and yeah, it's just when these companies, when indie folks get to make whatever story they want, that's what
Mm,
I'm talking about. Like, and
mm,
now we can really split hairs. Like I mentioned, Scout Comics, that has picked up Trakovi. There's another one actually, Commander Rao here, um, that got picked up by Scout too. Um, and so you can find a version of that with Scout's symbol on it, but like that's a Kickstarted version. Um,
okay.
so I'm finding there's like companies like Scout that are just like, you have, they'll find artists who already have a basis of fans, they know what they're doing, and they'll just go, hey, you do you, we're gonna handle publishing. And I
Mm,
feel like that's how Image started
yeah.
originally. And that's just, it's just a matter of these companies getting bigger. But that's sort of my rant on like indie comics,
Yeah.
what is indie, what isn't indie, and kind of the cool things you get out of it.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail right on the head when you said it's just scaling, right? The difference between scaling, and Kickstarter, I find, not just listening to you talk about it, it is a grind for these people. They are constantly going hard at it, and that just goes to show you the passion that they have behind not only being creative but also comics, the industry itself, right? So I'm 100% for that. And now that I know that, I'm gonna start going on Kickstarter. I'm gonna start looking for things because, I don't need to line Marvel or DC's pockets by just always going like that, right? They don't
Yeah.
need the money to get bread, right? But when you have artists and writers and doing it on their own, you really want to try to support them as much as you can, especially local artists. I find, like,
Yeah.
we just talked, we're from Canada, right? So we want to push for Canadian comics to really hit the market and go, right? So that's really cool. I had no idea about the Kickstarter with comics, and I knew Kickstarter,
Yeah.
but I didn't realize it was such a huge thing for comic books. So that's really cool.
Yeah, you know what? It right now, any sort of indie comics campaigning like that, usually it's through Kickstarter. There is also Indiegogo. Um,
Okay.
I haven't backed anything on Indiegogo myself. I've seen it. Just I don't know. I think it's just a popularity thing. It's just the
Yeah.
current thing. I'm sure if Kickstarter changes a policy, everyone's gonna hop over to Indiegogo or some other platform. But um,
Right. Right.
yeah, like one of the things that I learned that I absolutely loved was actually, if you out there right now, or you Kelly, pop into Kickstarter, and you search up uh Comics Canada, you will actually get any Kickstarter that is for comics based in Canada. And I don't mean the story, I mean the
Oh,
creators. That was the coolest thing, because it was
that
like,
is cool.
right, because like so many creators, and I mean from DC down, right, or DC and Marvel
Mhm,
down.
mhm.
um when people think of comic book artists, they think, oh, it's American heroes, it's American comics, it's American creators. And it's like, correct, there are all of that. That's all very true. But also, there are so many creators out there who are Canadian, um, whether they're born here or whether they've immigrated here, um, that are fantastic. Jeff Lemire, Francis Manapul are just two of the big names in comics,
Yeah.
that they're from here. They're actually from Toronto area. Trakovi actually, he is from, oh god, I want to say Alberta. Um,
Oh, West. That's cool.
yeah, like that's the cool thing about it, because of how the community works. Like the indie comics community is so incredibly tight knit, that you'll meet people from everywhere, and it, like myself, because I want to focus just like yourself on Canada and Canadian creators.
Yeah.
That's what I
Mhm.
do. I have found folks out in, East Coast, West Coast, everywhere in between. I even think someone in Manitoba. But yeah,
There you go.
it's all out there. It's super cool, man.
Yeah. And, and a lot of people don't understand that, Canada really, we really push for comics out here. We really do. And there's been some huge, not to go too in depth with it, but there's been pedigree collections that have come out of
Oh yeah.
Canada, that are phenomenal. But we're not going to talk about pedigrees today. Probably later down the road we could talk about that. But there's tons of huge things that have come out of Canada that kind of get pushed to the wayside. Like, just don't really focus on it because it's always about American heroes and stuff like that. And I get it, I get that. But with this new age of the internet technology, we can really put Canadian comics on the market, and I love that. I think that's really cool with Kickstarter.
Oh, absolutely. And another cool tidbit, not a lot of people know, is um, I forget which one of them, and I really should know this, but one of the two gentlemen that created Superman is actually from Canada.
Yeah. Hang on here. Is it?
I don't know if it's Schuster or Siegel.
I thought it was Schuster.
Hold on. We have the power of the internet.
Now you're really putting my brain to the test here a little bit.
Let's see. I just think it's one of the coolest things.
Yeah, absolutely. And the second part really I wanted to ask is the side quest. Now I'm a huge D&D player. I play with my friends weekly, and I love it. That cover alone just kind of gives me the retro first edition D&D. Like when you got the box and you take a look at the red dragon, that was such a cool take to it too, right? So I'm interested. Like, what's the give me the 30-second plot on that one? What's going down?
Honestly, it feels like a D&D campaign. So it's a 5-issue series. Like I said, number 5 is, I believe it's concluded on Kickstarter, but it's out there.
Nice.
Beyond that, truth be told, I haven't yet had the chance to read it because I get a lot. What I can tell you is some of the humor in the book is fantastic. Such as this giant man lunging for our heroes. As you'll notice, butt naked, but we're saved by a logo. And that's kind of some of the cool stuff you'll get with indie comics.
That's what I love. You would never find that in Marvel or Image kind of thing, right? So, I guess you sometimes do. I mean, when you see DC with what is it, the Batman Damned, you get a little shadow of Batawang, is that what they call it or whatever have you? But
the Batwang, yeah.
Yeah, right. But you don't get those kind of funny shots as much as you would in a Marvel book or something like that, right? So
exactly, yeah. And that's what I dug. Like the whole I've got the other 3 issues of side quest over there. They're all done up in this style. This one's like red, there's a blue one, nice. Purple, and there's a teal one, and the one coming out I think is black. Cool. But yeah, it's just, they're super fun. Like another one that I've got is Bestiary here. So this is written again, 2 folks from the local area, Kevin Manklow, and I know him as the Muna, Mike Connell. The Muna is his Instagram handle.
Okay.
and this one is basically a story set in the early days of Canada, like during like the fur trade and all that. And basically this dude here has been sent by the Crown of England to investigate the wildlife. And they've been noticing, people are going missing oddly. There's been odd sightings. And so his whole job is to go through and document all sorts of monsters. And that's what he's doing. So the first half of the book is actually a comic book. And then the second half of the book, which I thought this was super cool, is done up. Let's see. Yeah, this one's cool. Is done up literally like his journal.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah.
Okay, I was just gonna say, I was gonna be like, hey, can I guess? But yeah, absolutely. That is really, really neat. Because then I don't know, you feel like you see what had happened, right? Because you got the story, but then you get to see his work and what he's doing. Oh, that's brilliant.
Right? Mad Quill Comics, that's the company those two have made. They do have so they have a webcomic out where you can actually just go online, read their whole story. Then they had this come out, and now they're working on a next chunk of it that will be a full comic book.
Okay.
It's really cool. Again, Mad Quill is their name. And to touch back earlier on the Superman thing, Joe Shuster, actually
Schuster.
born July 10th, 1914 in Toronto.
That's awesome. And then also McFarlane is Canadian too.
No,
So
I didn't
there's
know
that too.
that.
Yeah, from Calgary, Alberta.
Oh, that's so cool. See, Canadian comic creators, it's the best.
Yeah, right. We're here.
Absolutely. Like it because I never when I started reading comics, I never thought about it. I just sort of assumed, oh, it's from the States, they're all Americans. And really quickly, I actually think I realized when reading comics that like, hey, you know what? Some of these names are like Spanish names. Some of these names are clearly like European, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I started looking into people, like, I always say his name wrong. I never know how to say it. Either George or Jorge Jimenez or Jimenez. Currently, the dude who's been drawing, he's drawing Justice League, Batman, Super Sons, killer art. And that's guys like him is when I keyed in and I was like, wait a minute, not everyone's American here. And I was like, hold on, who's Canadian? Who's like from my neck of the woods?
Right.
Yeah, that's when I started noticing it, and it was just so cool. And that's what made me want to sort of support Canadian creators.
Yeah, for sure. And like, it doesn't have, I'm not going to stereotype us, but it doesn't have igloos, it doesn't have beavers, and it doesn't have maple syrup, right? We're actually branched out from there, so that's cool.
Yes. And proudly I will say, like, to me the ultimate Canadiana of indie comics has got to be Captain Canuck.
Yep.
Just super cool hero. Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think Captain Canuck is awesome, and I think I don't know if you watch my channel, you'll see me talk about Wolverine a lot because I don't know. Growing up, he was a Canadian superhero, right? He was always about being in the Alberta mountains, and I'm a Western Canadian myself, so like I just had that connection from the get go with Wolverine, right? So, just anything to do with Canada, I'm just really happy about it, right? So, that's awesome.
Hell yeah, it's always great to be able to see that. Another thing that this isn't like a indie thing. This is just a creator thing. One thing I always think is cool is with Canadian artists. And maybe it's not specific to Canadian artists, but I notice it because I'm Canadian, is Canadian artists will find ways of sneaking in something as a nod to Canada. Whether it's, this story is based actually in, the neighborhood I grew up, or, they'll try and put little nods to stuff that unless you're from here, you wouldn't realize is Canadian. And I always dig that. Like, it's just cool.
Yeah. It's like a little mini Easter eggs to the people that know, right? It's hidden messages.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. If you're in the know, you know. But yeah, so that's sort of my spiel about indie comics. So awesome. Absolutely. Please go check out Kickstarter. Like I said, literally in its search bar, put Comics Canada, and you'll find all sorts of cool stuff. So take me to school, Kelly. What? Other than these 3 CGC slabs that I have and tons of indie comics, what's good in the world of collecting and take me to school.
So collecting just like in general, I think right now to collect comic books is probably at an all-time best right now because there is a price lull for in the market. So things that generally were really expensive because of the COVID boom, things are coming down right now. So it's definitely a buyer's market, and I'm so excited about that because there's books that have been on my radar that I've really wanted for a long time, but I'm just like, I don't want to pay that much. So then eventually, now that it's kind of come down, these are obtainable. And I think right now for people that are getting into the hobby, it's perfect timing. And like just for back issues. I'm just talking back issues right now. For those that don't know, back issues are books that aren't on the shelf right now that are modern. These are past years that just books that haven't sold or something like that you can find and pick up at your local comic store, any kind of market, eBay, that kind of stuff, right? So So I think right now is a good time to get into the hobby. I think that's really cool. I mostly focus on superheroes. I don't know what the market really is for in where you're from, but for me in my province of Canada, I would kind of break it down to say it's probably 70% Marvel, 20% independent, and about 10% DC. DC is really not here.
Huh.
But I always like to joke and say there's Marvel, there's independent, there's DC, and then there's Batman. Because Batman and DC, there's just like there's like such a divide. So there's oh yeah, I collect Batman. Oh yeah, would you collect anything else, DC? No, there's not in my area. That's where it goes, right?
So
They
true.
collect Batman and Joker, but then you say, hey, what about Superman? They're like,
Yeah.
nah, and well, for me, I love DC. I love it all, right? I love all the superhero stuff. So there's different routes to take for collecting. And that's kind of what I wanted to focus on a little bit today, just to kind of get you to going. Now you said earlier you read floppy, and I think that is phenomenal. Two things, right? Floppy is really cool to have, and then B, you're actually reading. Those are the cool things that I really appreciate about you and your channel is that you take the time to read the books. A lot of people don't. They either cover shop, right? Like they look at a cover, like just for example, this. I don't know if you can see. I have my blur on right now, but like here's the Batman 227, right? Good book, but
Oh.
a lot of people just buy it for the cover, right? But that book, like with illustration of Neil Adams and everything, it's an amazing read. So I I don't know how to say this, but a lot of times people either buy it as a trading card because it's slabbed, or they buy it just to display, which I really appreciate. You can display things, but just give it a read. That's all I'm saying. Comics are meant for reading.
Yeah, you know what? Very poignantly, then, and you're welcome to use this moving forward. On that literal exact point, I was at a fan expo in, oh god, 2-3 years ago. I don't know, sometime pre-COVID. And Frank Miller was there, and he gave a talk. And one of the things that he said that stood with, like, it was an hour talk, but this is like the one thing that just burrowed into my brain was, um, to us collectors out there who are putting their comics in plastic or sealing them in bag and board and never opening them, you're suffocating your comics. They're meant to be read. Read them.
I love that. I love it a lot.
Yeah.
And I mean, I do have slabbed books. I'm guilty of it. It's just as next as the next person, right? But there's I kind of follow a rule for myself for when I get something slabbed, right? Is it really old and brittle that it could potentially wreck? If that's the case, then I will get it slabbed. Um, there's the monetary value part of it too, which I don't really like to focus on too much. Just I mean, for example, like I don't know if you can see, but like this one,
Oh,
right?
that's
Like
cool.
it's really cool, and I have it slabbed, but then I'm frustrated because I can't read it, right? I can't read that. So then I have to go out and get graphic novel, and that's fine too, right? So I actually have a trade that I can read that. And that's kind of what I wanted to move my point to is that how I normally do my collecting is that if there's anything of floppy that's value, I generally slab or try to keep it preserved as best as possible. But then I go out and get graphic novels to read the story. That's
Yeah.
that's me. So you'll see um I'll have basically two or three of everything of what I want to read, right? So Batman, I'll buy a Batman comic, and then once that series done, I'll take that series and I'll put it in a short box, and then I'll go get the graphic novel and I'll just read that till the pages rip, right? So
Yeah.
that's me. So yeah, that's my collecting method that I use, and story arc. And I'm gonna go in depth with that kind of stuff on my channel, for a video coming up soon, where I kind of break down how to begin reading comics, right? Because I think there's a lot of people that say, "Oh, I don't want to start here. I don't want to start midway through." So, right, like I don't want to pick up Spider-Man 286 when the run started at 275, right?
Yeah.
I get it. but there's definitely ways that we can go about it so that you can jump into it and start reading. And it might be a little confusing or overwhelming at the start, but it's going to be cool, and I'm excited for that.
Hell yeah.
Collecting purposes about different types of slabbed. That's what I wanted to talk a little bit about today too. So
Sure.
we talk about CGC, and they're the monopoly, right? Everybody goes through CGC a lot of the time, but there's also other companies such as CBCS, which is phenomenal. I use them too, and then there's PGX as well. And there's a new one coming. I haven't actually attempted to send books there yet. But you can customize the label. I can't remember the actual company. I'll have to look it up and see, but you can customize the label to having a certain kind of color and all that kind of stuff. So it's kind of cool.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So CGC, I wanted to show one book here just to kind of give you example of the early years of CGC. Here I have my Marvel's Secret Wars #8. And it's a 9.8, but it's such a brittle slab that, like, literally if you just took a screwdriver like in this corner here, you could pop it open. Like, you really could. So over the years, CGC has really identified this problem, and they've moved forward to making them. I mean, they're just I don't know if you can really see, but they're so thick on the side, right? They're super thick. I do really appreciate that about CGC, and they've come a long way. Obviously, the turnaround times and stuff like that for the company, a lot of people are upset with it. And, I get it. You're sending your books, they're out in the open, you're unsure where they are, and you've heard these horror stories of books being lost and stuff like that. But yeah. I can tell you that in my experience working with slabbed work and getting comics created, I haven't lost a book yet. And they're really good with communicating when you reach out to them and be like, hey, do you have my book? They beat around the bush a bit though, when you're trying to find out, when are they coming back? Like, when will it be done? That kind of stuff. They're pretty tight-lipped on that part, but all in all, they'll let you know if they have your books, that kind of stuff. So I've been lucky so far, so I'll keep it at that. Yeah. One thing I wanted to talk about, so that was CGC, right? Everyone really knew. Sorry?
Yeah, real quick. About CGC.
Sure.
You mentioned the turnaround time. So, given where you are, because you're in, which province are you located in?
Saskatchewan.
Yeah. So when you send books to CGC, how many do you send, and roughly what was your last turnaround time?
Yeah. So I'm lucky enough that I generally don't send books myself. I have a really good community here that we pool our books together and then send them off. But I know from talking to a lot of people here in my area that it ranges. It all really depends on something like, are you getting them pressed, right? Are you getting them pressed there? Because if you add on that, it almost doubles, if not triples, the wait time at some points. So it does take some time if you're getting it pressed, which I do recommend. If you get a chance, get your books pressed. It'll help out. Excuse me. Getting them pressed. Now, you don't have to technically get CGC or any grading company to press your books. If you know somebody that will do that and you trust them, 100%, I would recommend doing it that route, because then when you send it to CGC and you don't get it pressed, you're saving yourself some time for that return, right? But again, if it's just for your collection and you're not worried about it, tag on the press, send it, and wait your time, right? Because I mean, you're not reselling that book, you're not doing anything like that, so make sure it's done professionally.
Yeah, in that way, the final book that you get encapsulated, which is when they put it in the big case, it looks as clean as it can, pristine copy. If I'm not mistaken, even CGC will clean the book, will they not?
Yeah, it's a clean end press. So yeah, it definitely is really, really cool. Actually, I had a question that I asked a friend today because I wasn't sure of it, right? So if you have a signatured book, like any of the yellow label is what it is.
Yep.
And I
Like
wasn't
that one?
sure on how this. Yeah, exactly. Or this one,
Or
like I was just showing.
the one you've got
Secret
there.
Wars, right?
Awesome.
It is pretty cool, and I like this one because it's signed by Stan. When I met Stan, right, it was really cool. That's another story. But really, with this one is if you have a signature on it. I was curious on how the process would work. And say if I wanted to get, my exec to sign this book now, right? How would the process work for that? Would they give me a green label for their previous signature and then yellow label for the next one? But how it works is that you actually send it in slabbed. So I'm curious to see if that actually works. Because I talked to a lot of people, and a person I trust a lot, and that's his process. And I thought, hey, that's pretty cool. So, and then of course, if you go to a con, how does that work, right? If you already have a signed book and you want to keep on getting it signed, how does that work, right?
That I can answer.
Yep.
So because I've gone to Toronto Comic Con, or not, well, Toronto Comic Con, but also Fan Expo, which is the big one.
Yep.
This is the thing that annoys me. Let this be known, Konrad does not like this about CGC. In order to get that gold label, or yellow label, it needs to be witnessed. So the one that you have with Stanley's signature there, which is yellow labeled, that is Signature Series. Cool thing, actually, more Canadian awesomeness. The gentleman who made that a thing at CGC actually works at Paradise Comics downtown Toronto.
That's cool.
That is super cool, right? So they have to witness it. So if you have a book that you want to have, say you wanted that book specifically signed by the artist.
Yep.
What you would have to do is you would go at the con where CGC has their people. You would go to them first and say, hey, I need you to come with me. They will then go with you to the artist. You will then crack open that case. The artist will sign it. And at that time, the CGC person will take the whole thing and walk away. And they'll go, here's your order number. Pay us.
100%. You took the words right out of my mouth, right? And it is frustrating that way. But, I guess it's necessary. And I like how you said witness, right? That's the key part here, because if you do go to a con and get a book signed and there's no CGC, like where I'm from, like when I go to a con, there's no grading companies that come to my area because of, I would say, because of population. It's not as big, right? So how does one get a book signed and then graded when you don't have those companies to witness it, right? And that's kind of going to lead me on to the next part, CBCS, right? CBCS, a lot of people think it's not as good as CGC. A lot of people think that. Now, me personally, I think if it's encapsulated, that has a grade on it, it's good to go, right? Just as long as you take care of it yourself, you bag it, and you look after it, right? But CBCS does something that CGC doesn't. Now, this is a double-edged sword for them because there's been some scenarios where people have anyways, what I'm getting to the point is that they actually do something that's called verified. And so what they have is a team that can verify signatures. So if you don't have, say, a grading company at a con or something that you get signed, what you can do is you can send it to CBCS, and their grading companies will have a verified expert to come take a look at the signature and say, yes, that is correct. And then they can continue on getting it slapped. Now, what they do now is they do give you a yellow label that I don't know if you can see it, but it does say verified, right? Yeah. So they have it now as a yellow label, which is really cool.
Hold on. You can't gloss over. Show that comic. Oh. Show that up. You can't gloss over a V for Vendetta signed like that. Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, signed by David Loy. I met him. He was a really cool guy. He actually did a doodle for me too, a V at my expo that I went to. Really, really cool guy. So cool. I'm really happy to have that book. But yeah, that verified in yellow label looks so much better because what they used to do previously is they'd give you a red label, and it's almost like the purple label. You know what I mean? Like it's still verified and it shows it saying, it's authentic, But a lot of people are like, I just want the yellow label, you know. Me personally, I think it's still cool. And this is a book that I'm never going to get rid of. I mean, it's in my personal collection. I'll keep it forever. So I was happy with the red label, but I think it was a really smart move of CBCS to just do it as a yellow label instead of witness. They say verified. That's one thing I really appreciate about CBCS over CGC. They do that. But like I said earlier, it's a double-edged sword, because then what's happened now is people have decided to test out how good their verification services are. So they will fake a signature, send it in to see if it gets through the cracks, right? And there was a big video about this that actually occurred, and one did slip through the cracks, right? So that kind of makes you question about CBCS. Do they really know how to do a verification, authentic look? You know, user, what's the expert? Sorry.
Yeah.
And you know, mistakes happen. It's human error. It can happen. I just think it's really cool to have that as a service. So for people like me that doesn't have CGC coming by all the time at a con, you can still get a slab book that's been signed. That's awesome.
No, you know what? And I totally agree. And one of, like, me personally, because I love getting to meet artists, shake hands, talk, and have them sign my books.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'll ever sell off these books. Like, I don't get them signed with that intent. It's always, I get a cool memory and a cool souvenir of, you know, oh, I got to meet David Finch. I got to meet
Right.
Stan Lee.
Great guy, by the way, right?
Finch?
David Finch.
Oh,
great guy.
Sweetheart. He's so cool.
Yeah. And we've actually kind of talked about this previously before, like off air, about how it's such a great experience to sit down and actually have a conversation with these creators, and not just for like 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Like, they will spend as much time as you want to talk about topics and be like engaged conversation with you, right? That's the cool part, because there's a lot of times those legendary artists and stuff, they're so busy that they can only be like, hey, how's it going? Good to see you, signed, see you later, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they have about a 3-hour lineup ready for you. But like the independent and the not legendary status, I guess we can say, but they're still amazing. Artists that are just doodling away at a con, it's great time to sit down and just talk, just have some time, right? So
yeah, you know what, it's one of those things where if you're into comics and you've never been to a con, I highly recommend going, for literally no other reason than, if you can find, if it's a comic artist you know and like, amazing, bring in some of your books, they'll sign them. If they're not busy, they'll probably actually draw on them. But yeah, like you said, they'll sit there and they'll talk with you. And some of the coolest things too is, when it comes to trades, paperbacks, hardcovers, like Once and Future, for instance, that's for those who don't know the term, that's paperback. And then hardcover is, what's hardcover? Actually, do I have
omnibus?
Yeah,
kind of thing.
all those collections. Give me just 1 second.
Hold, please.
So one of the cool things about going to a con is meeting your favorite artists, and it's amazing. But and this will not happen now with David Finch. Jim Lee is not going to do this for you. No. Like you said earlier, they have an hour or a 3-hour long line that they've got to say hi, and people have paid for their signatures. But I believe it's this one. But if you find maybe like you said, not super famous artist like Kenneth Rockefort, who drew this, and maybe there's no one at his table for whatever reason, if you get lucky and you speak nice, sometimes they draw in your books.
Oh, that's so cool.
Right? So
cool.
If you're going to a con, and I find they only do it usually in hardcovers. So if there's like a story you really love, like you were mentioning earlier, Kelly, you'll read the comic and then you'll buy the graphic novel to be able to read it later. If there's a story you really love, grab the hardcover instead of the paperback. It'll be more money, but like if you get to meet that artist, who knows? Like, it's such a cool thing to be able to get to do, and collect on. Yeah.
It's great. And one of my things is I'm a 90s kid, right? So I grew up watching Batman animated series, Spider-Man animated series, X-Men, right? All those cartoons in the morning, you're having cereal, right? It's a great time. But one thing I got a chance to meet Bruce Timm. And I did exactly as you said. I went and got a hardcover of Mad Love, and I got him to draw the Joker. And it's one of my prized possessions. I loved it. It's such a cool thing, and I keep it here with me at all times. And when I'm, if I'm having a funky day, I'll just go down and take a look at it, and it changes my whole thing, right? Because it was such a good experience. And I highly recommend exactly what Konrad said, is that if you do go to a con, don't just find a floppy, right? If you have a good story and you love this artist, get a hardcover and just ask. It doesn't hurt to ask. That's the big thing, because a lot of people find it. I almost want to say intimidating, or like kind of shy to go out and just put yourself out there to see. I mean, the worst case scenario, they say no, right? That's the worst case scenario. But 9 times out of 10, they won't. They really do take the time to be like, hey, you know what? Yeah, you want this? Let's do it, right? So yeah, it's such a good experience.
Yeah, like another thing too is, and this is both suggestion and story, I guess. For me, for Kelly, for people out there who want to meet their artists, get to talk to them a little bit. Here's my favor and my story. What I would ask and what I like to do is typically find 2 or 3 key issues of an arc or a whole series that you love. So when I started reading, like many people, it was Batman. So New 52's Batman.
Great read, by the way.
Yeah,
great read.
Fantastic, actually. The whole series, the whole 52 issues, banger. The whole series was done. So I picked out of it the first issue, the last issue, and like I think it was the one of the Death in the Family covers. And Atticon was Greg Capullo. Totally cool guy. He's kind of intimidating because he's actually like jacked.
His workout plan is crazy.
Right? Like, holy cow. But I went up to meet him and I got in line, and because he's Greg Capullo, and at the time he was like the face of Batman. Big line. Cool, whatever. I'm gonna get to meet the guy. I don't care. I'm in line. And, I had my 3 books, and I looked behind me, and the person behind me, they had like 8. And I was like, ooh, but okay. And the dude in front of me, who I never really paid attention to, had a rolly cart with a short box on it. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe they're buying a lot of books. Like, good for them, right? Like, I came only wanting signatures today. I wasn't shopping, but they came prepared. Cool, right? Like, they've got room. And we got up there, and he shook Mr. Capullo's hand. And he was like, it's wonderful to meet you, Greg. Oh my God, I'm such a big fan. Would you mind signing some comics for me? And he's like, yeah, sure, no problem, brother. Whatever you want. And this dude, I swear to God, picks up this short box. And he goes, here's this entire run you did with 2 issues each. Could you sign them all? And I immediately went, are you kidding me? That's like 150 comics or whatever it was. And to his credit, Greg Capullo was just like, yeah, no problem, brother. And so, at a con, sometimes the artists like that will have an assistant. So this wonderful woman is sitting there taking comics out of their bags, putting them on top of the bag and board, and sliding it over, and Greg signs it. And, the dude who brought all these comics puts it back and puts it in this box. And, Greg's just hammering out like 150 signatures there. And he does it, and the guy was like, oh, thanks so much, man. It's wonderful to meet you. And he's like, yeah, no problem, man. Great to meet you. Have a great day. And, sends him on his way. And I just remember being like, are you kidding me? Like,
yeah. Like, there's something called comic book etiquette when you're at a con, and some people just don't follow it, right? Like, I would never take a short box. That's just way too much. If you really enjoy an artist and you're really about it, I would say about 5 comics max if
Yeah.
you're gonna go that route. 5 comics, like what are you gonna do? You have them sit there for and hold up the line some more just to get a whole run where you don't care about certain book, but you know he did work on it. Like think of other people, right? Like
Yeah.
think of other people that want to have that good experience as well, right? So
Well, here's
it's tough.
Yeah, here's a question for you, Kelly, because this caused the question. Um, in your neck of the woods, do they ever charge for signatures?
Yeah, they do. It depends really on the con. Um, so where I'm from, Tom Grummett is actually from my area.
Oh, cool.
He's the guy who did Death of Superman. Uh, you know, legendary. And I actually did an
Massive.
interview. Yeah, I did an interview on my channel with him. And it's a historical story to the Man of Steel. Like it really is, right?
Yeah, it's the
Uh,
story.
Absolutely. And so he charges here because he's a bigger name, but people that are doing independent and trying to do that grind, right? No, I don't think they really do charge for signatures.
Yeah.
But if I hop over to the next province, to Alberta and go to their Calgary Expo, there's nothing free, really, because it's all expensive stuff, right? So,
Yeah.
um,
So on the tail end of that, so the reason I ask is my first con I went to, God, oh my God, it is 10 years ago. In 2013-ish, when I first got to meet Tony Daniel, who was at the time my favorite artist because his work on Detective was phenomenal. He was the first artist I ever actually had sign a comic for me. And I went up and, I was like, hey, it's just amazing to read your work. It's the first comic I've ever gotten. It's fabulous. Thank you so much. And he's like, oh, no problem, man. I'm so glad you like it. And I had like 2 or 3. And he was like,
Yep.
hey, happy to help. And what I noticed was for a couple of years, it was like that. And then very shortly after Mr. Shortbox hit up Greg Capullo for 150 signatures, the next year when I went, they had a rule where it was the first 3 are free, and then it's, depending on who you're having signed, it's $3 or $7 per signature.
Yeah.
And so to tie it back into collecting, what I learned is the reason for that isn't because a lot of people are coming and saying, hey, this 100 issue run of whatever you did, sign it all. What a lot of it is folks going out and buying a key issue in like 20 of them.
Yeah.
And then here, sign it. And then even sometimes have CGC watch it, grade all these for me, and I'll sell them all. Which kind of, again, puts them into trading cards. And I feel weird about it myself.
It's a rough situation. Look, people are trying to capitalize on that, right? They're not doing it for themselves. They're trying to run a business. And if there's a massive key, we'll just say Jim Lee's in town, right? Look at all the keys that he's done over the years. And so he has a limit on how many he will sign as well, right? And so, but if you're someone like David Finch, who was just starting out at the time, right, and did a great run on Batman, he probably would have had to sign 25 to 50 comics per person, and like massive, like a big key, it would be all one single issue. Yeah. And that is daunting on the person. Don't do that to the artist. Like they'll be kind. Honestly, they'll be super happy to your face and all that kind of stuff, but really it's not nice to them. So it's funny you said, I just want to kind of take back to when I said there's no charge. About 4 years ago, Todd McFarlane went to the Calgary one and he was free. So just put that into perspective right now, right? Think of all what's just recently happened at CGC signings and how much people spent money to send their books to CGC to get him to sign. When 4 years ago, you could have just walked into that expo and got a free signature from the person. So times have changed. Times have changed, and they're going to continuously change, right? But again, it's a business, and I think a lot of it stemmed from COVID, for having those years off and stuff like that. That there's some clawback that I think that's starting to really happen. So
Mhm.
I just wanted to pinpoint it out that there is some free signatures you do get, but
Oh yeah.
rarely does it happen in big cons.
Oh god, yeah. Especially like we said, the big names. Um,
Yeah.
one thing we've touched on CGC, CBCS. Um,
Yes.
one thing I wanted to ask about collecting is the protecting part.
Mhm.
So I have in and about 2,000 comics, um, which from my understanding is fairly average for someone who's been in it as long as I have, about
Yeah.
10, 12 years. Um,
Yeah.
to my understanding, you have many more comics. Um,
Yeah.
what would you recommend is the best way for people to protect their comics, and what steps should they take to ensure that they're okay?
Comics are awesome, but they're very isolating. The best route to do it, there's a couple things. Um, Obviously, if you can get them slabbed, that is, generally the best route to do to protect it for the long run. They're still gonna wear over the years. Like getting something slabbed does not mean that it's protected for life. It's not,
Yeah.
right? There's things, but there's countermeasures that you can take to make it so that it preserves longer. One is to have it in a room that doesn't have sunlight. Um, Basements are generally the best route to do this, because there's less sunlight going into it. If you have floppy comics like this one, I just wanted to show, this is my favorite comic. It's awesome.
Ooh.
It's Wolverine number 50. It's really no value to it, but it just, Wolverine breaks into Shield headquarters.
That's
That's what I love about
cool.
it. Right? It's such a, and he does it in a fantastic style too. But anyways, I digress. The best route to do is get it into a bag and board. There's definitely different types of bags and boards out there, so be sure to understand which ones best suit you. I mean, there's Ultra Pro, there's BCW. I use Comic Pro, Pro
Yeah.
Line. They're great. If you want to take it a step further, there's Milers and My Lights, that are essentially what the, I don't know if you can really see, but there's milers encased into slabbed, to really seal for against the UV light.
Mhm.
So milers really protect. That's the creme de la creme of bags and boards, right? Is the Mylar My Light two Mylar My Light twos, I think is the one. I haven't used them for a while. But the Comic Pros I find are just as, just under what milers are. So that's what I use, and they're more easy to get a hold of where I'm from. So that's the route that I go. And then put them into a box, like we talked about previously. Short box is probably the best route to go. Long boxes are very clunky and awkward to carry.
Yeah.
Um, right, that's an understatement. But like the BCW, like you said, those plastic short boxes are phenomenal. They're great for storing comic books, and not just comic books, but they also have graded comic book boxes as
Yeah.
well, which is also a huge thing, because that's actually really hard to come by, to find boxes for your slabbed comics. So that's a route that I would go. For slab boxes. I use the graphic boxes because they look cool. I'm a huge X-Men fan,
Yeah.
so I have nothing but a bunch of X-Men graphic novel boxes like that have pictures on the outside of it. I don't have one near me, but maybe after the magic of editing, you could show
Oh
a
yeah.
couple.
Well,
But yeah,
yeah.
that's what I use.
That's awesome. One thing that I ended up doing a couple years back, and I'm curious if you've done it, because as I understand it, you've got far more comics than I do, and as inexpensive as they are, when you have, in my case, 2,000 of them, um, the backing boards, the plastic, it gets a little pricey. If
Oh,
I'm
does it?
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, the rule I understood was every 7 years you're meant to swap out your bagging boards.
Yes, that can be a thing. I what I see generally that happens is that the bag itself, the board seems to hold out not too bad, but the bags, if they're not high quality, um, what happens is that they start to ripple. They start to like kind of, I don't know if it's because there's some kind of moisture in the air or something, but they seem to kind of get wavy. That's the word I'm looking
Oh,
for.
okay.
Is wavy, right? So if you're not using proper tape or anything like that, then the waviness can really take over, and then it's not that it's really affecting the comic a lot, but it does take away from the appeal, and you just never know. So always do take a chance to take a look at your bags and boards and see if they are starting to get old, and if they are, change them out. Yes, it is pricey, but that's why a lot of people invest in the higher end bags and boards, because it lasts longer, right? The milers, I don't think you'll have to change for a long time. That's why a lot of people do go for the miler and mylites, is because it prolongs the life on it.
Beauty. I love it.
Yeah. Just one thing I wanted to say is that with the collecting and preserving and stuff like that, watch the temperature of your house as well. There's a sweet spot for if you do have your collection in the basement. Do watch the temperature for the basement part to be anywhere between 68 to about 71 area, because anything higher than that, it could start warping the comics. So just be aware of that. And the moisture in the air. Moisture in the air is a killer for comic books. That's where you get the foxing. That's where you get the tanning. It all starts from that, right? So
For the folks out there who aren't aware, tanning, obviously that sounds pretty straightforward. Color on your book gets all weird. Whites become yellowed. Colors get deteriorated. What's foxing?
Foxing. It's weird. For the longest time, I had no idea what foxing was too. So I actually had to look it up, and then I started looking at my comics, and some of the older ones, you're like, oh yeah, they're starting to happen. Basically, they're like these little circled tan spots. They're like blots on the back of your covers and through the comic book, that the paper that they used back in the day really have a hard time with moisture and stuff like that, right? So they did, when they were making these comics back in the 60s and earlier, they weren't thinking about, oh, these are going to be something worth collecting years from now, right?
Yeah.
They were just thinking, hey, we want to get these in everybody's hands now. I want them to read, and we really want them to enjoy the story, right? That was their main goal. And now we're looking at it, I want this to be a 9/8, but it's got foxing, and it's like, we just didn't think of it that way back then, right? So yeah, so foxing is, if you take a look at your comic book, an older comic book, anything from pre-1985, I would say, you can start taking a look and see at the back of the covers, especially on Marvel books, you'll see that they start to appear with the advertisement areas, that you'll start seeing them start foxing there. So
interesting. See, it's cool to learn, because like for me, like I said, 2011 is when I started. I have a couple, like the Dark Knight Returns one there, which is encapsulated, is 86. I've got like the original run of Rocketeer, which is the mid 80s. But I haven't seen anything like foxing it. So that's really cool to learn.
Yeah, well, with these new modern books, like, it'll be tough to tell to see if that'll actually happen too, because the paper now is completely different, right?
Yeah.
They went to a new paper, so I don't know if they will. Who knows, right? We won't know until 20, 30 years.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing, man. It's weird and archival, and it's an issue of, we'll find out in 30 years.
100%, right? Because there's so many things that are so unknown. What's going to happen, because say we're in the 60s, we weren't going to be like, hey, in 2020, this Batman 227 that's sitting right here, that's going to be, hard to come by. We're just thinking, hey, this is a really cool book. Hopefully you enjoy it.
Right? Like that's one thing that I think, while I love collecting and I love people who are into CGC, and there's clearly a market there. So more power to you, by the way. Like, no, I don't mean to ever bash anyone who buys and sells CGC comics and does well at it. There's a lot of money to be made. But yeah, like I think the spirit of it gets lost, where like these people were like, I want you to read my really cool superhero story.
Yeah, 100%. And the thing is that one thing I do talk about, I talked about in one of my videos, is that you need to figure out what kind of collector you want to be, right? And what I mean by that is, do you want to play the stock market? Because if that's the case, then go ahead, do the slab, do that kind of stuff, sell on eBay. I know there's a market for it. You're going to do well. You just got to watch it and focus on that. But for me, I think the collector who I am is I want to enjoy the story. I want to find the first appearances of these characters, right? And then on top of that, I just want to be involved no matter what. And I think that's why I made my channel, is because I just want to be involved and to show this hobby to people. Since I started, I don't know about for you, but since I started my channel, there's been so many people that have reached out and been like, hey, I'm interested. Like, what do I do? You know, like, it's such a cool thing. And like, hey, can I see your place, or can I see your personal collection? And that's really cool to me. And it's just building up the community. And that's really my goal. Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's interesting because I find my audience, because I focus so severely on indie creators and people trying to make comics, I find my audience becomes a lot of people that are also making comics because they want to support each other. And I find the folks out there who like, oh, I just want to read like Batman and Captain America, they'll see my stuff and be like, yeah, whatever. So it's interesting because there is so, like, a lot of people go, oh, comics, it's this nerdy thing, it's this little comics. And I'm like, no. There's like this whole freaking universe of like all this different stuff out here. It's wild. And that's why I think shows like yours are really cool, because they get people in the door. They get people to, to think, I can do that. I want to read that. I want to know what's going on. And you know what? If any person really, but if some kid out there watches like Black Panther and is like, you know what? I want to read that. Awesome. If they see your show and they're like, I know where I'm going now. I know what I'm going to do. I know what comic shop to hit up and what to ask for. That's all that matters. Yep,
100%. And it doesn't have to be superheroes. To be honest, my daughter, she broke my heart. Was it about a week ago? She finally came up to me. He's like, Dad, you know what? Superheroes ain't doing it for me. It doesn't interest me. And you know what? I said to her, that's okay. It is okay that superheroes don't interest you. There's tons of things that you can focus on. And she went the anime route. She's into My Hero Academia. She loves that.
Oh,
right. So it's really cool to see that, it doesn't have to be superheroes. And a lot of people, I think that at comic books, it's related to just guys in tights fighting bad guys. And there's so much more out there. And that's why I really wanted to talk to you today and learn more about indie stuff, because the superhero is getting to the point where it's redundant, right? A lot of people are just being like, yeah, okay, superhero. So I want to branch out. And like when you showed me Side Quest, like I instantly drew to that book, being like, okay, I know this is going to be a fantasy D&D, and when you said humor, I'm in. Like after we're done here, I'm gonna go find Side Quest.
Perfect.
So, right? So that's what I love about this industry, comics, is that it's so diverse, so diverse.
Yeah, like just we're at like an hour and 10 minutes or whatever.
Right.
So I don't want to be too long, but to speak on that too, because I think it's important, is as cool as Superman is, and as much as I love Batman, clearly quite a lot. There's so much more out there. Like, actually, here's another one. So, what is this wonderful man's name? I forget off the top of my head. There's a show in Mississauga. It's called MXS, I believe. Mississauga Comics Expo.
Okay, yeah.
And it's basically like a little con. It's an indie con. So there's this thing called Numerosity. So this is all created by the same guy.
Wow.
So check out Numerosity Comics. But basically, these are 2 magazine-size anthology series issues. And it's all horror.
I was going to say they're a lot bigger than comics, eh?
Yeah. For scale. Got Golden Rage here.
Wow, that's a big difference.
That's big. It's that prestige edition, some of the black label sizing. But it's a horror anthology, and
very cool.
That's what I like about it. Or actually another one, it's near and dear to my heart. If you haven't read this, check it out. It's Black Sat. So it's put out by Dark Horse.
Okay.
Basically, that's John Blacksad. you'll notice he's a cat. He's also
Yeah.
a 1920s, 30s PI, and he gets mixed up in all sorts of stuff. And you get all sorts of cool characters.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah,
that has kind of a twist to the Goon. You know the Goon,
yes.
right? It kind of reminds me a little bit of that, but with animals. That's that's cool.
Like
I'm for it.
And again, I'm gonna say this man's name wrong, and I am so sorry. But Juanjo Garindo, who is the artist on this stuff, just a fabulous artist. Like, and again, that's like PI noir detective stuff. There's, as we showed earlier, Once and Future, which is all Arthurian legend, like King Arthur, but like put in modern context. So yeah, there's so much in comics that is not superheroes that is just ready and waiting for you. I think my last example I'll give is Afterlift. So this is done by Chip Zdarsky, he's the writer, and then Jason Lowe. Both of them are actually Toronto. I interviewed Jason at Comic-Con here in March last year.
Nice.
This really wild story is about an Uber driver who gets contracted by basically a demon, and all of a sudden they literally are driving to hell. There's demons after them, and it's a wild story, and things like that happen. So yeah, like,
man, that Uber driver better get 5 stars.
oh hell yeah.
Literally hell yeah.
Hell yeah, to hell and back. Yeah. Like, yeah, that's the wild thing about comics is a lot of people who don't read comics, because, not that this is a good thing or a bad thing, it's just a thing. Because DC and Marvel are the giants in the industry, and there's tons of movies and toys and TV shows that are all superheroes.
Mass produced.
Yeah, that's all people see.
Yeah.
One of my biggest suggestions, and I've talked to many comic book store owners about this, is please, if you love comics but you hate superheroes, just walk into their stores, whatever your local store is, say, hey, I hate superheroes, but I want to read X genre. I guarantee you they'll have a book for you. Like,
100%. That's the first thing I always say to anybody who's just curious about what to do in starting comics is go to your LCS, local comic book shop, go to the employee and just be like, hey, I'm interested. I don't want superheroes, or I do want superheroes. I want something with Loki. Be specific. Ask them questions.
Yep.
You're going to get something that you're going to like. I guarantee you it.
100%. Yeah. So Kelly, we're at an hour and 15-ish. In the interest of not, making anyone too bored and making sure that, the folks out there want more. Before we end this, I did want to ask, at KT Comics, what can people expect? Like, when they go to your channel now, what can they expect from you, and what do you got coming up?
Yeah. What to expect? Basically, I travel trying to find comic books. I talk about comic books. Everything for superhero purposes really is what I normally focus on, because that's the genre that I personally love. But there's, like, I've done Marvel Station. I went to Vegas. I checked out comic shops. I do reviews there. I've also, showcase off what I've recently picked up. But my main thing that's coming down the pipeline is I'm making 3 new segments. One is dealing with the Marvel Encyclopedia and DC Encyclopedia. And we're randomizing it so that we can find out certain characters and exploring them so that you can understand where that character came from.
Oh.
So now we're just focusing on not just A or B list characters. We're focusing on the C, D, G, A, all through the alphabet to find out these characters. And then what I'm going to do is kind of showcase off some comics that you should read about that character, which is really cool. I'm having a lot of fun with that.
Yeah.
We already talked about the collecting comics 181 is kind of like my little class of where to begin at comics, and just helping out new beginners into the hobby. That's what I do. So lots of things coming up. I'm excited. Hopefully, people like it and enjoy it. And I'm looking forward to this year, man. There's lots in the works. So thanks for having me on too, man. I really do appreciate collabing with you. Hopefully we can do it in the future. This was new to me, so.
Good. No, new is good. I like it. And honestly, it was fantastic having you on. So Kelly, again, thank you so much, man.
Yeah, absolutely. No, anytime. Just let me know.
Perfect. And for the folks out there in YouTube land, check out the doobly-doo down below. Links will be there for Kelly's stuff. Anything that we've talked about, I'll try and source links for so you can see it easily enough, including Kickstarter. Yeah, like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.
Golden age to present, digest to oversize. Never miss new comic day. Yeah, no surprise. So where's my no prize? Check the letter columns. Can't find issue 2? Yeah. Collector problems, cliffhangers, mysteries. You need answers. When did Batman become Green Lantern? I get it. True believer, not lying. Always up for an awesome summer crossover.